The courtroom fell into complete silence as the young attorney slowly placed a faded photograph on the judge's desk. It showed a tired single father standing beside a frightened little homeless girl on a rainy afternoon 15 years earlier. No one understood why such an ordinary picture mattered in a billion-dollar legal battle. Across the room, powerful businessmen exchanged confident smiles, believing victory was already theirs. Then the young woman lifted her eyes toward the man sitting alone at the defense table. Tears filled both of their eyes as she quietly revealed that everything those wealthy men believed about his life was wrong. In a single unforgettable moment, the forgotten child he had rescued years ago became the only person capable of saving the empire he had spent his entire life building. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Every act of support helps inspiring stories like this reach more hearts around the world. Every city has people who rush past those sleeping on sidewalks without ever learning their names. 15 years earlier, Mason Aldridge had become one of those people after losing almost everything. Once a respected construction engineer, he suddenly found himself raising his 5-year-old son alone after his wife's unexpected passing. Grief followed him everywhere, but bills never stopped arriving. Instead of giving up, Mason accepted every small construction contract he could find, working long days under the blazing sun while returning home each evening to cook dinner, help with homework, and quietly cry after his son had fallen asleep. He carried heartbreak like an invisible backpack, never allowing anyone to see how heavy it truly was. He believed life had already taken everything from him, until one rainy afternoon changed his destiny forever. While driving home through a neglected neighborhood after finishing a repair job, Mason noticed a tiny girl sitting beneath a broken bus shelter. She looked no older than 7. Her oversized sweater was soaked by the rain, her shoes barely held together, and she clutched a torn backpack as though it contained her entire world. People hurried past without slowing down. Some glanced at her with pity before continuing their busy lives. Mason almost drove away too, but something in her frightened eyes reminded him of his own son after losing his mother. He parked the truck, walked through the rain, and offered her a warm meal. She hesitated, clearly expecting another disappointment, but hunger eventually overcame fear. Her name was Nora Ellison. She had spent months surviving on the streets after losing both parents and escaping an abusive relative who wanted government assistance more than her safety. She trusted no one because every adult she had depended on had eventually abandoned her. Mason listened without interrupting. He saw a child who desperately needed more than sympathy. She needed someone willing to stay. Many people warned Mason against becoming involved. They said adopting another child while already struggling as a single father was impossible. They reminded him that he barely earned enough to support himself and his son. Friends questioned his judgment. Neighbors whispered that kindness would only create more problems. But Mason had learned that the easiest decisions rarely became the most meaningful ones. After months of legal procedures, background checks, and financial sacrifices, Nora officially became part of his family. Life inside their small house was far from perfect. The roof leaked during heavy storms. Winter nights often meant sharing blankets to stay warm because heating bills were too expensive. Mason skipped meals without telling the children so there would always be enough food on the table for them. He repaired broken furniture instead of buying new pieces. Birthdays were celebrated with homemade cakes, handwritten cards, and laughter that somehow made every hardship feel smaller. Slowly, the house filled with something money could never purchase. It became a home where broken hearts learned to heal together. Nora struggled during her first years. Nightmares woke her almost every evening. Loud noises made her panic. She hid food beneath her bed because she feared hunger would return. Mason never punished her for these habits. Instead, he patiently showed her that breakfast would always be waiting, dinner would always be served, and no one would ever force her back onto the streets again. Trust grew one ordinary day at a time until the frightened child finally began smiling without fear. Watching Mason work tirelessly inspired Nora in unexpected ways. She noticed how he always treated workers, customers, and strangers with respect regardless of their background. Whenever someone couldn't afford repairs, he quietly reduced the bill instead of embarrassing them. He believed character mattered more than wealth, and those lessons quietly shaped both children into compassionate adults. Years passed, and Mason's tiny construction business slowly expanded. Through relentless determination, honesty, and countless sleepless nights, his company became one of the region's most respected family-owned firms. Employees admired him because he remembered birthdays, helped families during emergencies, and refused to cut corners for larger profits. His reputation became his greatest achievement. Meanwhile, Nora excelled in school. Teachers recognized her remarkable intelligence and encouraged her to study law. She dreamed of protecting ordinary people who lacked powerful voices because she never forgot how close she had come to disappearing into the system herself. Scholarships helped Nora attend one of the country's finest law schools. Every success she achieved reminded her of Mason's sacrifices. She studied until sunrise, worked part-time jobs, and graduated with highest honors. Even after receiving prestigious job offers, she specialized in corporate litigation because she wanted to understand how powerful organizations could either destroy families or protect them. While Nora built her legal career, trouble quietly surrounded Mason's company. A ruthless investment group wanted control of the valuable land owned by his business. They secretly manipulated financial records through a trusted executive who had accepted large bribes. False reports suggested Mason had committed fraud and illegally transferred company assets. Within weeks, banks froze important accounts, investors withdrew support, suppliers demanded immediate payment, and newspapers published damaging headlines. Decades of honest work appeared ready to collapse under carefully planned lies. Former allies disappeared almost overnight. Business partners who once praised Mason suddenly refused his calls. Television commentators discussed the case as though guilt had already been proven. Even longtime employees feared losing their jobs. Mason spent endless nights reviewing paperwork, desperately searching for evidence that could expose the conspiracy. The more he searched, the deeper the trap appeared. Every document seemed to strengthen the accusations against him. Nora learned about the crisis while preparing another major case hundreds of miles away. She immediately recognized unusual patterns within the public documents. The timeline didn't make sense. Financial transfers appeared almost too perfectly organized, suggesting someone had deliberately manufactured evidence. Without hesitation, she requested leave from her law firm and returned home. Walking into Mason's office after so many years brought back memories of childhood evenings spent finishing homework while he completed paperwork nearby. She saw the same worn family photograph still resting on his desk. Although his hair had turned gray and exhaustion filled his face, his gentle smile remained unchanged. That moment reminded Nora why she had chosen this profession. She began investigating every financial transaction personally. Instead of accepting official reports, she interviewed forgotten clerks, maintenance workers, retired accountants, and delivery drivers. Small details overlooked by everyone else slowly connected like pieces of an enormous puzzle. Hidden security footage revealed unauthorized access to confidential files. Deleted emails were recovered through legal requests. Bank records exposed secret payments between the corrupt executive and the investment group. What initially looked like overwhelming evidence against Mason gradually transformed into undeniable proof of a carefully orchestrated conspiracy. The courtroom became the stage for the most important battle of Nora's life. Across the room sat experienced attorneys representing enormous financial interests. They expected the young lawyer to become overwhelmed. Instead, she remained calm, methodical, and relentlessly prepared. Every question she asked uncovered another contradiction. Every document she presented weakened the false narrative. Witnesses who once confidently blamed Mason suddenly struggled to explain missing facts. Confidence slowly disappeared from the faces of those who believed wealth guaranteed victory. Finally, Nora presented the faded photograph from 15 years earlier. She explained that the case was never simply about contracts, land, or corporate ownership. It was about the character of a man who had built his life by protecting vulnerable people even when he had almost nothing himself. She described how a struggling widowed father had adopted a homeless little girl despite overwhelming hardship, expecting nothing in return except the chance to change one life forever. She reminded the court that integrity is measured not during moments of comfort but during seasons of sacrifice. The emotional weight inside the courtroom became impossible to ignore. Jurors looked toward Mason with new understanding. They realized the accusations described someone completely different from the man revealed through years of consistent compassion and verified evidence. Facts defeated deception, and truth finally overcame influence. After days of testimony, the judge dismissed every false accusation. Criminal investigations immediately targeted those responsible for manufacturing evidence. The corrupt executive and several conspirators faced prosecution, while Mason's company regained full control of its assets. Investors returned, employees celebrated, and families whose livelihoods depended upon the business discovered they still had secure futures. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Nora, asking how she had managed such an extraordinary victory. She simply looked toward Mason standing quietly beside his grown son and answered that 15 years earlier a man with almost nothing had invested everything he possessed into one forgotten child's future. That investment had grown into something no balance sheet could ever measure. Mason never considered himself a hero. He believed he had simply done what any decent person should have done. Yet his single decision beneath that rain-soaked bus shelter created a ripple effect reaching thousands of lives. Employees kept their jobs. Honest businesses survived. Families remained together. One act of kindness multiplied across 15 remarkable years until it returned when it was needed most. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support allows more inspiring stories of hope, courage, and second chances to reach people who need them most. Special request: before this story ends, please comment, kindness always comes back. We'd love to know where you're watching from, and your words may encourage someone who feels like giving up today. As the sun set behind the courthouse, Mason and Nora stood together watching golden light spread across the city skyline. 15 years earlier, one lonely child had believed the world had forgotten her forever. One exhausted single father had believed his heart had no room left after unbearable loss. Fate quietly proved both of them wrong. Their greatest victories had never come from wealth, status, or power. They came from choosing compassion when it seemed impossible, believing in family without sharing the same blood, and refusing to let another human being face darkness alone. In the end, the empire Mason saved was never just a successful company. It was the family he built through love, sacrifice, and unwavering hope. And the greatest legacy he left behind was not measured in buildings or bank accounts, but in a young woman who walked into a courtroom carrying the strength, courage, and kindness he had planted inside her heart many years before.